Hi, my name is Dr. Daniel O'Connell, and I'm eager to share my Christmas story with the followers and viewers of Shalom World here and afar. God is with us, and He certainly is present today in our world, guiding ourselves through these challenging pandemic times. My Christmas story starts in the state of Ohio, where I was born. I am the middle child of three, with two loving parents who raised me in the state of Ohio, and also my older brother and younger sister. I recall vividly Christmases of years past being times of great celebration with respect to the birth of Christ, which is so pivotal and key to our Christian faith. My family raised us so that each and every Christmas season, we would have great preparation for a Christmas meal where we would say a prayer, thank the Lord, and subsequently spend time in fellowship with one another, honoring the birth of Christ, Mary, and Joseph, and the incredible Christmas story that still carries with us today and will continue with us in the distant future. I recall going to visit my grandparents in the state of Ohio and spending time with them during the Christmas holiday. And I, of course, remember, as many others likely do, as a child, opening up Christmas presents to celebrate the birth of Christ, always keeping His memory present. I suppose that's in many ways where my medical career started, as I was granted a Christmas gift of a doctor's kit made of plastic one year, which consisted of a stethoscope and a reflex hammer. And to this day, I have these items, not plastic though, the real thing, which I use in my weekly practice. My family means the world to me, and I view Christmas as a great opportunity to come together with our loved ones and celebrate this amazing event in history. My Christian faith has molded me not just as a doctor, but in the modern era, especially since the pandemic, as a doctor who utilizes telemedicine services to involve myself with my patients out of state, many thousands of miles away. And it can be a success with that, being together in spirit, as God is with all of us, as it is in person. Just as there's something called bedside manner, there's certainly something called webside manner. And I think we as Christians can continue to cultivate that and keep these excellent manners that have developed over time and these accolades and spirit with Christ, maintain that, and also send that back and forth through FaceTime, through Skype, through these remote technology means. Christmas means a great deal to me. It's certainly not just about presents and using new technology. It's most importantly about spending time with one another and with family. And when we think about Christmas, we must remember that Christ Himself and His parents struggled to find room. There's no room at the inn. But as Christians, we know today that we can make room. And we can make room in our lives to interact with our loved ones and our family through either modern technology, as I speak of, or in person. And that can be challenging. It can be challenging to be socially distant while interacting with each other in person and maintaining masks and so forth. But we do this out of love. We do this out of respect, especially for those who are older in our families. Like in my family, my grandpa, 90 years old, in Ohio, Korean War veteran, fantastic man, and I love him. However, I'm reluctant to break those barriers given his rather debilitated state. The Christmas season carries us forward into the present, and with God's presence throughout the world, we sense it, especially during this time. But the aim, carrying it through into the Easter celebration, which is a celebration as well, a celebration of Christ's death and everlasting love and sacrifice for ourselves. You cannot have one without the other. I had the opportunity to see the presence of God and the extraordinary care provided mostly by our nurses and respiratory therapists during these COVID pandemic times. I was tasked in April of 2020 last year by the U.S. military as a military reservist with the Air Force to go to the Bronx to help out at the second hardest hit hospital in New York City, Lincoln Hospital, in order to assist with patients in need. I found myself an asset. However, I must commend our respiratory therapists and nurses for doing the bulk of the work, which is largely what we call supportive care, nurturing those dealing with this virus, of which we have no cure, only a vaccine, for which we can often improve patient outcomes by maintaining good health otherwise in these patients battling this virus, especially with those that have underlying conditions such as asthma, COPD, kidney problems, etc. Those hardest hit are those who already struggle. And through Christ's Spirit within us and our faith in God, we can persevere. And I had the opportunity to see that work and God being with us and the high quality care I saw delivered, not just by military reservist staff whom are nurses and respiratory therapists, but also with our civilian colleagues and our medical ICU attendings, medical ICU staff and ward staff, ER staff helping to triage patients in these times. And you can see the light of God within them caring for each other. And the great challenge with these pandemic times is often the inability of family to be with their loved ones in the hospital due to the quarantine setting. And as I said earlier, the great benefit of the Christmas season is being with one another. It's being with our loved ones. And it's very challenging to do that when they're, in fact, impossible, I would say, in a hospital environment where loved ones are restricted from being at bedside with their family members due to the COVID-19 pandemic. How we can overcome this with assistive technologies, with bringing a iPad, for which we do clean regularly after each visit thoroughly and sanitize, that can then be used to interact visually and in an audio setting with our loved ones who struggle, who are in the hospital for conditions unrelated to COVID-19, and for those who are infected actively with the COVID-19 virus, COVID-19 disease by the SARS-CoV-2 virus. And that goes a long ways. And it's that spirit, it's that loving spirit transmitted by whatever means necessary that can bring God and ourselves together. Where two or more are gathered in my name, there I am. Very true statement. And it's an honor for me simply to be that individual who at times has held such an iPad, a device to help family members communicate in the hospital setting during these pandemic times, as something of a conduit with one another, for which there we are. A church is made of wood, but the real church, in essence, is people. It's ourselves that are there, and be it wood or otherwise, that's the real church, is ourselves living in harmony with Christ Jesus and God above. Faith truly unites us, and I had the incredible opportunity to witness this in the hospital setting, especially in 2020 with these dark pandemic times and their onset. When dealing with patients who are extremely sick, when we ourselves as healthcare personnel are covered head to toe in personal protective equipment, PPE, to protect ourselves and the patients surrounding us from transmission of this terrible virus, we still nonetheless manifest Christ's love, and in many ways are the hands of Christ helping with each other in conduit with our faith. And it is this uniting force that you get to see, you truly appreciate when you're in a room with a patient who's ventilated. You can't really make out their facial features that well, perhaps. Maybe they themselves are a bit covered up, and certainly we're perspiring in our PPE at times, or it's a bit misty and we're unable to see. Nonetheless, there's these barriers, there's these separations, hospital gowns, etc. However, God unites us. We are together. And it's seen in these patients ourselves. It's seen the light of Christ in their eyes, in their essence, and knowing that where two or more are gathered, there I am. Truly, we experience that as healthcare staff when we're rounding, meaning going bedside to bedside on patients, exchanging out PPE, going into a different room and assessing the patients, seeking to provide better care by a multitude of means, be it medicines or ventilator settings or interventions. We have the opportunity to realize God is with us. Truly, God is present in these rooms when we're helping to deliver patient care, and we see the light and essence of Christ in the eyes of our patient base when we are in these rooms, seeing them and assisting them with medical technologies and healthcare needs. We also see it in our ancillary staff, the other staff members going in and out of the rooms, helping with suctioning and other ventilator-related care. We have the opportunity to look at them and sense in their eyes and see the light of Christ, and seeing this great gift that has been given to us to help one another while we are here on earth, regardless of where we are. God is with us. I was, in my opinion, undeservedly awarded an award known as the Catholic Doctor of the Year for the year 2021. I do not feel I deserve this award. However, I was humbled with notification that I was nominated and successfully chosen for this award. And subsequently, I changed my mind and accepted the award in honor of our nurses and respiratory therapists, as I spoke of earlier, helping in these pandemic times to assist patients with their respiratory care needs and other needs in the hospital and clinic settings. They're the true heroes of this pandemic. In addition to our chaplains, let's not forget our chaplains, regardless of denomination, assisting with our loved ones and others in the hospital in these distressing times. It is a known fact, studied, that those that are faithful individuals tend to have somewhat better outcomes in the hospital setting on average than those who lack a faith life. Quite an interesting phenomenon. But when you think about it, when God is with us, when things can happen despite the bad cards that may come our way, we can grow, we can nurture, and we can heal. And those, I believe, are testament cases of the success of our faith in God's will in our daily lives. No one knows when God will call us to move on to the next chapter of our existence, but we can certifiably state that God is with us regardless of where we are, what state, what nation we are in. And this includes hospital beds throughout the United States and elsewhere containing patients and loved ones who are in need. The Catholic Doctor of the Year 2020 award uniquely was not awarded to a single individual. It was awarded to healthcare staff at large. And I view myself as a continuation of that and helping to spread the good news in any way I can. And it may be as simple as bringing together family members through a phone call or through, as I said, assistive technology means, and helping to facilitate that and having God amongst us as we do so means the world to me and can sometimes make the difference. I truly believe this. The concept of hope in our daily lives is extremely important, especially during the pandemic, with respect to moving forward, with respect to being resilient. Resiliency truly means to stay intact, to keep our faith wholesome and our Christian beliefs intact as we move through these times, knowing that very well they will be stronger especially with this holiday season and our remembrance of the birth of Christ and the great role and knowledge that that has in our lives. The Christian cross means a great much. It means that ultimately the birth of Christ leading to his life, his divinity on earth, leading to his death on the cross. The cross is a sign of struggle. It is a sign of sacrifice. And so many of us in different ways, and certainly not limited to us healthcare workers. This also applies to other essential workers. And truly every individual in the world has been affected in some way by this pandemic when you think about it, directly, indirectly. And through God, knowing God is always with us and having that hope that God is going to see us through this, knowing that, feeling that, praying on that will help us get through this pandemic, move on into the following year and the year next, pandemic free, hopefully in the near future. And when I think about our Catholic Christian faith, when I think about our loving ourselves and our neighbors, I of course reflect on the Apostle Luke, the only physician apostle, as mentioned in Colossians, who mentions in his gospel the parable of the Good Samaritan, the only place it appears. And what is that about? There is a question asked, and who is my neighbor? And Christ, as many of you recall, answers this parable and describes it in detail. And in effect, what does this mean to be one's neighbor? It is beyond a physical presence next to somebody within several feet distance. It means so much more than that. It's beyond that. What it means is those who are our neighbors, who we look after, who we care for, despite how they appear, despite their demographics at large, despite where they live. And that's true with telemedicine services in my life as a physician, inpatient and outpatient, seeing people through these advanced technology means. They are also our neighbor. They may be thousands of miles away. They may be out of state. But in keeping with the parable of the Good Samaritan, we help them. And in many ways, that is our neighbor. They are. And God is with them as they are with us. And that faith and that hope and knowing that we can use these things to help with a better world, to help with better connectivity, and in my case, patient care. In the case of non-healthcare personnel, being a helping hand in so many different ways, be it with counseling, financially, you name it. The technology exists for that, and we make the most of it, making these loved ones throughout the world truly our neighbors. And it's during this Christmas season that we recognize the gifts that God has also given us, the intrinsic abilities and aptitudes that we have developed already in our lives, and putting those to use. The greatest gifts we have are often those that we are already given, and reflecting on that and realizing that we have our strengths just as we have our weaknesses, and using those strengths to deliver outcomes favorable and in keeping with Christ's message are key and essential to hope and having faith in these pandemic times during this lovely Christmas season, and seeing that star in the sky and seeing that Christmas tree and our loved ones surrounded by it and the vision of Christ. And I am honored and pleased to share my personal beliefs and reflections on this Christmas holiday from afar with Shalom World and those throughout the nations and globe in need in these challenging times, just as I am, for the love of Christ, for God's love, and keeping the Holy Spirit within us and that movement, that momentum, moving us forward through this Christmas season and helping us to stay connected in one way or the other. It can be as simple as a text message, or it can be through these video audio means that can be quite effective in helping us to see one another and spreading the message of Christ. God bless. Merry Christmas.
always
This is the death
remarkably empty.
Turn back towards God. Rise up.